Hey guys, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week I'm joined by an industry pioneer, veteran, expert, and good friend, Boye Balogun. He is the CEO of Future Tech Media and also a partner with Jonomi Ventures. Good morning, Boye.
Morning, Richard. Thanks for having me.
And pleasure to sit down and chat.
Yeah, love it. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the new offices.
It's a new space, and you're our first interview in Dubai Works in our new studio, so you're very privileged and you're very welcome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I kind of hinted at it, but our careers have overlapped a lot. I'll give a quick kind of background, but we first met probably 12 years ago in London, and we ended up entering the Middle Eastern market together 10 years ago, roughly.
Yeah, I think it's definitely dovetailed. I remember you being a ambitious young social media exec or one of the biggest media companies in the UK, and the journey to where you are and the businesses are now is amazing.
Yeah, and you were a good mentor and a boss and many things. But now you've gone on and you've got your own 2, 3, whatever, many big things. Can you explain when you meet someone, what is it that Future Tech does and what is it that Jonomi partners are?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the heart of it, I'm a media man. I spent, best part of 20 years in digital media. It's all I've ever done. I started off at an agency in the UK called Profero, working on the Apple account, working on Western Union and Halifax Bank of Scotland. I think I probably spent 2 or 3 weeks at an agency called Mindshare working on traditional media, and the rest of my life has been digital.
2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years. Well, 2 or 3 weeks. Sorry.
Okay.
2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. It was a good experience, but I just knew it wasn't the future. I knew I wanted to be somewhere faster. I knew I wanted to be somewhere more interactive. And I challenged myself and moved career. As a grad, to make that decision within 2 or 3 weeks was huge. But the background then is I went through various independent agencies, and then where we met, I finally ended up in MEC, one of the WPP agencies, media agencies in the UK. And I ended up the digital team over there for a few years. And of course, the UK market at that point was one of the most advanced digitally in the world. So loads of learnings, loads of experiences. And actually, funny enough, most of my relationships come from, I would say the 6 years I spent between Profero and MEC. And if you know media people, it's a very small circle, spread across, most of EMEA.
True.
And I think that's really pushed where I am in terms of my career, because it's really pushed me to be collaborative. And that's where we birthed Future Tech Media, out of thinking about how we can collaborate with various areas of digital and bring some of those learnings to the Middle East.
Yeah, and okay, let's talk about that for a second, because many people will know of careers in marketing services, whether it's digital or traditional or PR, and people will want to know, where do you go from there? And, your remit in the region at the time was to manage a lot of clients' campaign spends across the region. What sort of insights did you have that led you to say, okay, there's a gap for Future Tech? And what sort of year were we talking about that you set it up, and what's offering?
It's a good question. So I moved to Dubai in 2012, and I'd flirted with kind of relocating 2 years earlier. It wasn't the right time. And as exciting as the UK market was, I wanted to explore somewhere a little bit more cutting edge, a little bit more emerging. And that's a thing for me, right? It's kind of, pushing boundaries and challenging myself. And in the world that we live in, some of that is location. You've got to explore and go to other places to learn. And I joined another WPP company called Mindshare as a regional digital director. And it's interesting you asked me about careers, because a lot of the conversations within the organization used to be about generalist and specialist. A generalist being overall business lead that could, lead creative or media or technology, and a specialist would be someone that would work on search or social or programmatic. And I think if you work in digital, actually I don't call it digital anymore, but we'll come back to that. If you work in digital, I think as long as the core of what you're doing is technology and you're open and willing to learn, then the career paths are endless. You can become a generalist or specialist at the highest level.
Yeah, interesting. So you then jumped across the other side of the agencies, and your provider, the marketing solutions that you offer are that sort of cutting edge to the agencies. And how have you built that business, and what does it look like today?
Well, there's a nice story about that. I was on my way back from the Festival of Media in Cannes. And I'd spent 4 days. I know it was 4
I think that was in Italy, no? Cannes is the Cannes line. And
it was Cannes line.
Oh,
yeah, of course, you're right. It was Cannes line. And I'd spent 4 days with, going to various seminars, sessions. Of course, it's Cannes, so a lot of lunching. But, you get a lot of learnings and insights from those sessions. And I had a very clear idea of what the next 4 years in digital media and media in general would look like. And I didn't particularly think that my current employment would provide me the opportunity to take advantage of that. So I was on an Emirates flight. The nice pen and paper they give you, thank you, Emirates. I sketched out a business plan. By the time I landed, I had the bare bones of a strategy and a financial plan. I think that was probably late Q3, and over the next 2 or 3 months, I resigned my employment and started a business 3 months later.
Wow.
And I've never looked back, and I think being an entrepreneur, starting up any business, nearly kind of changes the way you're wired. You personality-wise, you become a very, very different person. And of course, you get uber-focused, but you're always looking to build and be a creator and look for the next opportunity. So that's the background to it. And the reason why we started Future Tech Media is, I remember my times in media agencies in the UK, and all the companies and solutions and, I would say pioneering advertising solutions I had access to and I used to work with. And, in the Middle East at that point, Dubai being the center of that acceleration, I wasn't seeing that. So I built a business, Future Tech Media, which brought digital solutions and technology to the region 18 months to 24 months ahead of anyone else.
Wow.
And, we collaborated with companies that we thought were next stage and next level, predominantly, and I would say to begin with, in the UK and the US. But now with the way the world is going, a lot of those partnerships are Far East and even from Africa. So the business is essentially giving you end-to-end digital solutions for, I'll say, advertisers that are front runners. It's not for everyone. It's for the 20% that really want to explore, really want to push the envelope, and want solutions that can scale.
Interesting. And using Dubai as a hub, how have you seen the demand and other territories, and how has Future Tech Media grown?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because Dubai is my home. But it's also from a business point of view, we don't look at it as an HQ, we look at it as a forward operating base, which means our Dubai office in Media City doesn't have to be the biggest, but it has to be a center of excellence. But also it's a jump off point to our offices in Singapore, to our offices in Lagos, Nigeria, to Cape Town and, Joburg office for South Africa. So it gives us a real broad network. And I feel in some ways Dubai helps us connect the Western world with, parts of Africa and parts of Asia. And there's a kind of little main point in Dubai. There's people. It's definitely the destination and something really special about this part of the world where people are, work is play, play is work. People are enabled. The leadership and government has created an atmosphere for business empowerment. And, we've really, really tapped into that. And when we go to places and tell our story, we really tell the Dubai story, which is, it's about business acceleration. It's about entrepreneurship, not just from the leadership, but right across our organization.
Interesting. Well put. It really is that type of city. I haven't heard it described so eloquently as that, but it is a business capital city like that. Boy, fascinating the story about going to a conference and being inspired and coming up with a business plan on the plane. I love it. But when you see trends, I'm not going to simply say in hindsight, if you look back, X% is going to be online, therefore there's the opportunity. How do I execute? But in reality, the kind of macroeconomic environment has been challenging over the last 2-3 years, but even over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And then the digital shift is becoming not simpler, more and more complicated. Yeah. How have you navigated that, and what are some of the challenges that you've overcome?
I think our position in Future Tech is obviously to be at the forefront of this. It means that we are more open to taking risk. We've got product portfolios of partnership that's worked out really, really well. We're the first ones, for example, to bring programmatic influence advertising to the region. Yeah. And that was interesting. So that as a DNA allows us to, I would say, explore and experiment really, really quickly. And I think after, years and years of doing this and being in a digital and connected field, you just get a little, I don't know if it's intuition or coded knowledge of what's going to work. And you touch on the ebb and flow of things, as well. I think, if you always focus on, A, things that are relevant for the region, B, things that are innovative and different, because we like innovative and different in this part of the world. I think that would always work.
That's good. So you do think that, particularly in the UAE, that people do want those sort of trendy, innovative solutions?
Absolutely. And, and it's innovation that works and innovation that scales. But, we are in one of the glitz capital of the world. So, part of it is when you look at a CMO and how they approach marketing, for example, they have to look at short-term demand, and it's all sales. And they have to look at, long-term demand. And somewhere in between all that is, how can I excite and how can I, make sure that I'm in the news about my product. And it's not just about sales, right? It's about inciting something that's passionate, inciting, and recruiting, long-term brand advocates as well. And if you're in Dubai and you're a brand and you don't get that, you don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. So when you and I arrived here, you were a little bit before me, but there was numbers banded about it, how much of a CMO, how a marketing budget is spent on digital, versus the figure that now is the time to explain why it's not called digital, but versus the number now. And if you people say, there's a brilliant Jeff Bezos quote saying, the number of, I saw the number of people going to be on the internet, therefore I set it up. But it's not as simple as that, right? Especially with digital marketing, if we go, hey, it was 10% of a marketing budget and now it might be 50 or 60%. Is that, okay, I'm just going to set up a digital business and I'm just going to benefit because it's as simple as that?
Yes, definitely no straight line. I mean, there are two ways to look at it. And I remember we used to be media planners together, good old days, right? And we just used to look at eyeballs. And back, a media agency would we look at it from a planning point of view and go, well, you know, only 10% of people are online, and that's 10% of the budget you're going to spend. But even when the kind of, you know, digital eyeballs was 60% of the media pie, they was still only spending 20%. So I think what's really happened in the region and probably globally is that I would say that the digital penetration was always faster than the adoption in terms of marketers investing in that space. But we're finally there.
Okay.
Right? You know, if you look at the region, the IAB put some numbers out last year. You know, the IAB being the Interactive Advertising Bureau, you know, the Dubai chapter.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we are at $3.6 billion digital advertising spend in the Middle East, North Africa region.
Yeah.
And that's social media advertising, that's display media, that's video advertising. That's a whole bunch of things.
Huge jump, yeah.
But it's, you know, it's been accelerating and doubling.
Yeah.
And, but and that's why I don't call it digital anymore. I think that's now mainstream.
That's mainstream.
I think if you only think in broadcast, you're dead. You're dead as a business. Forget it, right? You just have no idea. If you're in your strategy meetings talking about going digital, you're behind, right? But you can still catch up. You know, it should be 50 to 60% or marketing budget. And I know, you know, some FMCG brands, it's 90% of the marketing budget.
Yeah.
And but it's a great question, Richard, because I was reading an article today, and you know, one of the brands was talking about going digital. It's 2022. We're in a post-digital world.
Yeah.
It's, you know, there's no physical and digital anymore.
Yeah.
It's all just connected.
Just
It's just all connected. It's just connected advertising. Anything that you can, that has any kind of internet connection to it, is advertising that is, you know, essentially the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I'm very passionate about that area.
No, it's good. We could labor on it, but I know you're into the connected world that we live in now, so we'll have to remember to touch on that. But sort of two questions in one to kind of close off this topic is, you innovated with your offering. Did the others catch up? And also a pandemic related question, you weren't obviously attending as much physical events in the past. So how did you find that with staying on point, on trend with what solutions were out there? How did you keep on top of the market and keep innovating during the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's a great question because, you know, I would say broadly media people are very tactile. It's an industry where you want to have conversations, you want to meet people, you want to brainstorm in a room together, and of course, we can do that a lot over the last 18 months to 2 years. So, I mean, we've done a lot of webinars, and that's been useful. You know, we've used Zoom, thank God for Zoom, to connect in person. And you've just seen the massive increase of online conferences, which has made it a lot more accessible. It's definitely not the same, because some of the nuggets is not in what's been broadcast in these conferences, it's in conversations. But we may do with it. So, you know, one of our partners, Reuters, so Reuters, for example, is a partnership that we exclusively represent across Middle East and Africa. What we've done for them, for example, is we've done a lot of webinars with tourism boards, with government bodies as well, and they've connected the audience to the advertisers, and that's worked. But I have to say, you know, as a connected quote unquote person, I'm quite keen to see the end of the pandemic. You know, we believe in a hybrid structure of physical and digital. But you know, I'm quite a tactile person. I like in-person meetings. I do travel a lot, but I think that, you know, the richness of meeting multiple people, ideas, locations, you know, that's what drives me as a person. Yeah,
fair enough. Interesting. But so you didn't think that the pandemic held you back? You were able to stay on top of the trends in other markets and bring them to future tech. It didn't sort of slow down the innovation.
No, it didn't. And actually, you know, it's for our South Africa operations, for example, we launched a product, I think a month into the pandemic, called Adimo. It's basically a shoppable marketing technology. It enables you to go from click to purchase. You know, traditional digital advertising would be, you know, you see a banner on web or, you know, and you click on it, but there's no kind of closure or conversion in terms of purchase. And this product essentially enables you to see a product you like as a consumer, have a look to a carousel and purchase. And we connected this with Noon and Amazon and a lot of local retailers. But having Dubai office as a pilot and then taking that product within, you know, 4 to 6 weeks to our South Africa office, enable them to have, you know, one of the best years that they've had in terms of business. So it's we definitely accelerated, but that's because we adapted very quickly. We are still a medium organization. We want to be that. I think when you're too big as an organization, you lose a little bit of your DNA and your agility.
Okay, and that was part of the second question. Is that what's happened? If you were running one of these global media groups, what's the status quo? Are they innovating? Is it the digital landscape really challenging for them now? And are they going out of business, basically?
Yeah, I think big media holding companies have somehow, despite what the industry generally thinks about their future, somehow managed to survive and grow. Not all of them. I think there'll still be massive consolidation. But if you look at certain spaces, can they buy you the best media for the lowest cost? 100% yes.
Okay.
But can they tell you what to do with your e-commerce product over the next 3-4 years? Can they help you explore emerging markets faster? Can they help you launch a product and actually be part of, you know, the product workshop and the technology? I think that entire space of media support services, including media buying, is disrupted already.
Yeah,
it's disrupted already.
Yeah,
but you can't see it. Why? Because you're seeing growth from the big media companies, but you don't know what the opportunity cost of that growth is. What I mean is, if they grew by 20%. What could that have been 100%?
Okay.
There are a lot of smaller independent agencies, some focused on only creative technology, some focused only AI and automation, some focused on programmatic.
Yeah.
So I think it's already disrupted. Okay. It's already they've already lost a lot of market share, but there is a space for them.
Yeah.
And they're huge organizations. They're never going to disappear overnight, but they will change.
Yeah.
They're definitely not innovating as fast as they should, but you can't at that size.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Even Facebook doesn't innovate anymore, you know?
Except with the Meta stuff. Well, we've yet to see anything, right?
Well, I don't think Meta is innovation at all.
Okay.
So it's positioned as I would say, a first strike and a first movement, but actually it's not. It's a reaction and it's a defensive position, right? If you look at Web3, you look at that space. And you look at how people are now getting on web. You know, we're getting on web through wallets. I mean, if I look at my browsing habit over the last 7 days, I've used Coinbase Wallet, I've used MetaBase, MetaMask to get online. That's what I'm using to browse.
Yeah.
So that's already disrupted. So I think they actually playing a game of catch up.
Interesting.
As opposed to leading that space.
So stay nimble, stay small. Sorry to innovate as you go. But yeah.
I'll say this. You know, I've worked in digital and technology for 20 years. And I would say this is singularly the most terrifying time and also exciting time with Web3, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, the whole blockchain revolution. For me, you know, I've never seen anything like this. It's a mass acceleration. But on the flip side, when I've broader conversations with generalists in our field, they have no idea. So if you're looking for disruption, that's the space it's going to be, and it's happening now.
In the Web3 space,
It's happening now.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you know what? You know what killed Web2 for me? Influencers. That was the end of Web2.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating you put it like that, and we could have a whole separate podcast on NFTs. And I do want to ask you about your other venture. But I was listening to a publishing podcast, and they said that e-commerce actually brought second life into Web1 publishing companies, because Web1 is SEO. It's got no social interactions, but the companies that embrace e-commerce with Web1 are doing really well. And I almost think that the media publishers who've embraced social influencers, that Web3 will actually breathe life, will prove the thing that Web3 is trying to do that Web2 never did, 2.0 never did, because it never actually gave real value or money for influencers. They were never, or anyone.
Yes.
You couldn't really monetize your social. How much money have you made from your LinkedIn account or your Twitter account, right? Nothing. Indirectly, but directly nothing. But actually maybe Web3 will make a lot of money for people, but it will do it on top of Web2.
It's I'll just one thing on the influencers bit. Right? You probably thought I was being negative when I said influencers killed Web2. But I actually mean it in a say what you like about influencers. I actually mean it in a positive way for them, because I think influencers realize they don't need social platforms. It's actually the influencers have really done well. I've looked at bricks, and have looked at opening physical stores and creating their own NFTs. So they've actually gone beyond, above and beyond the social platforms.
They create
whereas it was created on social, but now it's like, well, I could have a store in Dubai Mall and I could do an NFT launch, and it's just gone above and beyond it. And when you think about it from that point of view,
interesting.
It's a totally different space.
It's all about projects now.
It's all about projects.
Yeah, interesting. So switching tact a bit, can you explain Jonomi Ventures, how it came about and what you do?
So in a way, I'm kind of a reluctant entrepreneur. I've always kind of seen opportunities and gone, why is no one doing this? We've got to do something, and then done it. And then I slept for 5 years, but you know the drill. So Jonomi Ventures came. We're doing a lot of partnerships with tech businesses, and then the IPO off the back of our revenue the next year. We were like, well, how can we get involved in this? So we started investing in tech businesses and startups in the places we're operating in. At the same time as doing a feature tech partnership with it. So we were, client and a customer of theirs, and then we're an investor. And that did two things. That allowed us to direct the product roadmap, but also, enjoy some of the benefits of their growth that we're contributing to. And we've all, Jonomi Ventures itself is a venture business. It's early to mid stage, and it's growing. It's grown over time. I think it's only about 3 years old. But what's enabled us to do is approach startup investment from a founder point of view. If you're a founder and you've had to put together a vision, the product development, marketing, you just get it. You just sit in a pitch room with someone, you just know. You can look at the numbers, look at the forecast, look at the product roadmap, but it's a very, very different way from, I would say, a financial analyst coming into the business. And we built it for the region. We built it for the Middle East. We built it for Africa. And our thesis is anything that's connected, right? So one of our latest investment was an hydro farm in Egypt.
Wow.
But it's connected to, AI technology that tells them best time to produce strawberries, something like that.
Interesting.
So from that to, we've just done an exit with El Grosso, one of our early investments, just been acquired by Etisalat. I'm not sure if they've announced it. Actually, they have announced it, so I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
So, I think they very related worlds. People think that it's completely different, but one of those technologies as well.
And interesting, fascinating. But it is a different business. It's a different business.
Yeah, 100%. And 100%. We've got a different partnership.
Yeah.
We, our head office is still here, but actually we do a lot of transactions from, Singapore, Estonia, wherever that business is. Yeah.
But from setting, how does one go about setting up a fund? Because you might spot cool trends that you go, I'm just going to write a check, but to actually, do you need to have it? How does it work? Like, what's the business offering? What's the context? And also, we hear of businesses through word of mouth, but is there a different access points once you're a fund? Like, is there a different network, and is there different ways to get to the table and things like that?
Yeah, I'll answer your question in bits. I think if you start from scratch, you always start from angel investing. You look at a company you might know the founder, you should know something about the sector, and you have an amount of disposable cash to invest. And if it's your first investment, you probably follow it very, very closely. So, we started from that to syndicating, inviting people to a pool to invest in a company.
So they would put money into a pot, into a fund.
Essentially, we set up an SPV, which is essentially an investment vehicle, like a mini company, to invest in X. And I'll be the protagonist as the managing partner. And I would, put forward a proposal, and we invite, people to it.
Interesting. And how's it? So is that you started like you would as a personal investor? Is that
exactly?
And then
and we grew it over time to bring in more people, more partners.
Yeah.
But now we're in a position where there is enough of I think we're 10, 12 investments in.
Okay. Wow.
And that's enough of a base to raise a fund off, because you show what you're doing, you're making the right bets. B, you've got enough of I'll say you've got a couple of exits, so you can reinvest.
Yeah.
And you've done all that
track
learning.
record. Yeah.
You've done that learning. And you've got that track record.
That's a really insightful way to approach setting up a fund. People might say, "Hey, I'm going to get $50 million together, or $100 million, and I have a fund." But what you've done is you've got like-minded people together. You started with basically personal cash and investments that has proven out what you're trying to do. And then the next stage then could be potentially to get outside, institutional investment into a fund.
Absolutely.
And then you have more room to play with when you go around looking at companies.
And it's interesting when you say that, because people always think, well, you go set up one fund. And actually in 2022, I think we set up two separate funds. There's a fund that we're raising for Middle East and Africa. It's a $10 million fund. And I think it's swayed more to Africa than Middle East, if I'm honest. It's probably 80-20%, because massive acceleration in that area. And then we've got a second fund with a kind of, different managing partners. And it's, people ask me, oh, that must be incredible and quite difficult to manage. Well, it's not difficult to manage. I think if you've got the right investment thesis, you've got the right team, this is a team of 4 or 5 people, particularly on this fund. And you have a very focused approach on what you want to invest in, that you know about, you've done your research and you can roll it out. It's of course a brave area, right?
Yeah.
It's bonkers for people to put, to invest in a business that's 6 months old. And that's kind of where we are, it's early stage. But I've always invested in people, so it's a little bit easier for me.
Yeah.
And we try not to just invest in a founder's first outing. We try to invest overall in their business. Outing 1 might not work, but outing 2 might.
Are the returns higher in the Middle East and Africa, a more riskier market? Is the risk reward worth it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Africa. That's a exploding frontier for us. Some of the businesses there I've gone from, $100 million valuation to 2.5 billion in 18 months. It's bonkers.
Wow.
So, I think there's massive acceleration there. A lot of the fintech companies that we've invested in, they look at the consumer base and they're like, well, 80% of the Africa population is unbanked. Of course, they banked in one way or the other, but based on, this particular product, they're untouched. So yeah, absolutely. It's a big market.
Yeah.
Nigeria alone is 200 million people.
Yeah.
Right. South Africa is 40 million plus. So it's huge.
Yeah. Because it is a big market. You think the Middle East and Africa is, an emerging market, therefore it's smaller. It might be smaller in terms of spend, but actually, but this, I guess, is my question is, you're actually, everything that's connected can be invested in, but that can essentially be every category, every industry.
Sure.
And the market that you've chosen is massive. And you're early stage to mid-level, which is also huge. So how do you narrow it down? How do you know which ones to go for?
I think it's something you mentioned earlier on that I didn't answer actually. Your question was, how do you find these deals? It's a network.
Okay.
It's a network. So, one of our first investment 3-4 years ago, we, I think it was a creative tech company in Estonia that was operating in in the rest of EMEA, and we partner with over here as well. But you get onto that shareholder call and you might have put in a couple of $100,000 or even $100,000. But the lead investor there has just put in $2 million. That's a network, right? So you're co-invested in that, and you get access to their management team, you get access to their research, and you start to learn, you start to build your network.
Yeah.
And now we've expanded that network to, a lot of founders, a lot of VCs, a lot of angel investors in the Middle East, in Africa, in the UK. So it's like everything else. It's, you just build over time. That network. So I think now we probably receive something like 5 proposals a week from founders, just from word of mouth. People say, "Oh, you need, e-commerce in Middle East or digital technology in Middle East." Well, you need to speak to Jonomi because they invested in Next. They know that space, or they might be interested.
Interesting.
And that's it. That's
how it goes.
Yeah, I think the bigger VC companies, do it differently, but. Based on our goals and on our pace, this is working well for us.
And what's the vision then for Jonomi in terms of, you mentioned that example of a lead VC leading it, and then there might be smaller companies like yours, and then even smaller angel investors. Is that the place that you'd like to stay in for now? That you kind of you'd like to be part of the early round, but you don't necessarily want to lead as the lead VC from start to stock listing? Yeah,
I think it depends. So the way we structure the business is, Jonomi Ventures itself, it's a venture business, but the funds that we raise could be with other partners, and some of those, we will earmark some investments for initial, some for follows. So I think it depends on the partnership and it depends on the fund. On some of them will be really, really early, based on the risk factor of that business, and some we will see an opportunity to keep growing with them.
Is the opportunity, so talking about the trends, and we're here at the start of 2022, what's more important for you, to invest in a certain space over the next 12 months or just to find the right people?
It's a good question.
Or if we sat here a year from now, would you feel like there's a trend? I know you love doing predictions and looking down that vision tunnel, but is there an area that you go, I really need to get in?
100%.
Where?
So if someone asked me, what's the broadest prediction and kind of like forecast over the next 2-3 years, I'm not even talking 12 months, it's decentralization.
Okay.
And I think when I say that, you go back and you think of Web3, but I think it's decentralization of everything. And some of that will be scary for centralized organizations, such as banks and governments, but I don't think it needs to be. And I can give an example from currency, but actually let's talk about identity, you know. If you look at your identity now, so I'm a Black British, Nigerian heritage. I could be British Nigerian, Nigerian British. I live in Dubai. I have offices, you know, in 4 or 5 cities in the world. Where do my kids identify? You know, what do they identify as? You know, are they British? Are they Black? Are they, you know, Nigerian? They're Jamaican? You know, what is their identity?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is decentralized identity in the digital space.
Yeah.
So when someone puts up a Bored Ape Yacht Club profile picture or Doodle's profile picture, well, that, you know, that person is saying, now that's my identity, and it's decentralized.
Wow.
I'll use that on LinkedIn, I'll use that on Instagram, I'll use that right across the board. And I think if you take that premise into every area of what we're talking about, that's going to be the huge and the biggest disruptor. Biggest disruptor.
Well put. I didn't even think of it like that. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Got it. Then the other broader question is: you've been here a long time-ish, relatively speaking. What's your sort of outlook on the Middle East and Africa? Is it a market, an emerging market that will eventually emerge? And what's the current prognosis?
Big question. Big question. Big question. Big question. I mean, for us as a business. Again, it's a great forward operation base. I've got multiple businesses that are Dubai centered. I think the risk, the challenges, there are also opportunities, right? You know, you've got you know, the Middle East generally will grow, but you know, we're in Dubai, we're in UAE, and that's probably the most interesting to me to begin with. But then you've got Saudi as well, which it's not a young country, but if you've looked at the activities of the last 18 months, feels like a young country. You've got Qatar as well. I think we're just at the beginning. You know, I spent part of the summer in Miami, and I saw all the buildings, and I went out with an F&B, I was at a few conferences, and I came back to Dubai, and I looked, and I just, for the first time, I think I was looking at it from a very clear perspective, and it just felt like it was only 20% built. Okay. And if you look at it from that point of view, wow, the ride has just started.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's my, I'm an optimist, but you know, look, we've got loads and loads of lands. We've got businesses, the amount of entrepreneurs I've spoken to in the last 6 months, they've just relocated to Dubai, and the way we've, you know, we've handled the pandemic as well. So amazing. I think, yes, only the beginning, but if you think about Dubai as being the center and the kind of like the cutting point of the Middle East, then actually the growth for the rest of the region is unprecedented.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant note to finish on. I think it's the best conversation we've had. I'm glad we recorded it. I've learned a lot. Thanks very much, Boye.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks a lot. We'll follow both your adventures in the coming years.
Thank you very much. Good luck to you guys, and have a fabulous 2022.
You too.
Hey guys, I'm Richard Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.